Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So as Lisa mentioned, we will be recording this webinar and it will be viewable later on our YouTube channel. Today, we will be hopefully joined by Kim Tompkinson a little later, but leading our webinar in what can the Moodle ISU Gradebook do is Lisa Kidder.
So today's workshop is a little bit different. We're just going to go through a bunch of frequently asked questions on the Moodle Gradebook. So we're not going to go dig down deep in setting up your gradebook. We're just going to go through some of the big questions. As always, you are welcome to reach out to us in the ITRC, and we'd be happy to sit down with you to look at your gradebook, discuss alternative grading possibilities, whether that's in grading an assignment or calculating your grades or how your course is designed. We'd be happy to sit down and work with you on that. There are three main gradebook views. There's the grader report, that's that spreadsheet view, the user report, which is what the students see, and then the gradebook setup. And this is where you decide how the columns are organized and the math that goes into how your final or overall grade is calculated. All three of these gradebooks views can be seen by clicking on grades at the top of your course. And then in the drop-down menu, you have lots of options. And these are the three main ones that you will work through. If you have questions about any of the other items on this drop-down menu, again, we'd be happy to meet with you and go through each of them. Or if you have something, we might end up pointing you towards something on this list. Number one question, how do I add something into the gradebook? You add something by adding a graded activity. And you can also add something as a grade item for something that is done outside of Moodle. When you go to add an activity in your Moodle course, you get this choice here, and it's color-coded. Anything that has a grade will also have a section that includes grades. By default, Moodle puts in 100 as in 100% for every graded item. If you do not grade out of 100 or 100%, you can override that maximum grade, but just know that is the default. The color coding you can see at the bottom, but let's make it a little bit bigger. Red are items that are typically assessed, so all of the items in red actually have the possibility of making them a graded item. Green are not typically assessed, but some of them do have a grade item with them, some of them don't. The external tools, that all just depends on which tool that is. And then the blue are basically resources or like files and URLs and those things that you add to give your students to the content. If you want to add a grade item when you are in the gradebook setup, there is a button called a grade item. This does not put it on the front page of Moodle. This is great for things like a pop quiz. Say you have a face-to-face class and you had them fill out the top 3 things that they learned from the lecture that they watched or the chapter that they read before they got to class. They submit that to you and you can enter those grades in Moodle. So that's the grade item. This is also where you would add a category. So notice the category button there. How does Moodle calculate grades? You have 3 different options in how to do your math. Natural aggregation adds up all the points and divides by the total. This is also the default in Moodle. Simple weighted mean of grades converts everything to a percentage and then uses the max grade as the weight. The mathematical end for simple weighted and natural aggregation is fairly close. The differences show up in the 5th and 6th decimal point when you do the math. Weighted mean of grades converts everything to a percentage and then uses the weight that you have entered into the gradebook. So these are your 3 options in how to calculate grades, and you can even use a combination of them depending on how you do grades. Natural, I said, is the default, and that's the most common. So here's an example. We have 4 different category types. There's 5 quizzes, they're 10 points each, that equals 50 points. You do the same thing for each of those rows. You add it all up. The max total in the course is 550 points. So if you have something that looks like this in your gradebook, you're probably using natural. Simple weighted is a little bit different. You might have something that looks like this. Notice that nothing changed except for that percentage column, but the percentage columns are a little bit different. But the total is 100% because you want to see 100%. But let's compare these 1 and 2. If you look at it, 100 is actually approximately 18% of 550. Or if you want to do the 50, that's approximately 1% of 550. This column here of percentage is actually informational. This look is generally add up all the points divided by the total. Generally speaking, you're probably doing natural. If you think about things in terms of percentages, you might be using simple weight, or you might be using weighted means. So with weighted means, you would have a grade book or an explanation that kind of looks like this. The quizzes, no matter how many there are, they're going to be 10%. With a grade book like this, you can go through and add a 6th quiz in there, but it's still going to remain 6%. So those are the 3 main aggregations. The other common question we get is, can I add extra credit? If you are using natural aggregation, the answer is yes. If you're using simple weighted means, yes, but there might be some questions. If you're using weighted mean of grades, yes, but it is definitely more complicated, and you probably need to give us a call to make sure that it is calculating correctly. So to summarize how math is done to take all of your individual scores and the possibilities in the Moodle Gradebook, you have 3 main aggregations. In natural, the point is a point. So 1 point on an exam is the same as 1 point on an assignment and 1 point in a discussion. If that's how you talk about your grades, you're probably using natural. If you like to talk about percentage points, then you're probably looking at simple weighted or weighted mean of grades. You'll notice that the max grade will depend on either the weight or the max points. Categories may impact how the grade is calculated. If you are using natural, the total number of points cannot be overridden because you're adding up all the points, and Moodle needs to figure out what those total points are. Notice extra credit with natural and simple, it's yes, but weighted means it's usually a little bit more complicated. Feel free to reach out to us if that is something that you need to do. You're using weighted means and you want to add extra credit. We are happy to help you with your gradebook at any point in time. Another question we get is, can I drop the lowest quiz score? The answer is yes, if all of the items have the same max grade. If you have 4 quizzes that are a max of 10, and then you have a 5th quiz that's out of 12 points, Moodle doesn't know. So yes, you can definitely drop the lowest score. You have the option of keeping the highest or dropping the lowest. We actually recommend keeping the highest. The reason for this is that the students then will have to get that many quizzes before the quizzes start getting dropped. And so the math looks a little bit better and gives them a little bit more motivation at the beginning. This is what will happen. Students will see, in this case, if we have 3 homeworks here and the lowest one is dropped, if we keep the 2 highest, there had to be at least 3 scores before the 3rd one is dropped if we do the keep the highest. Just a little trick there. If you want us to look at things, again, we'd be happy to check that out. And you have the course total display a letter grade. We're getting towards the end of the semester, or when you get to the end of the semester or midterms, then you can take and you want to enter a grade, a letter grade into the system so that for the registrar. You can pick any 2 of the following to display in your course total. Real, that's the exact points, a percentage, or a letter. We're going to go through how to change that for you. So we're in our gradebook setup, and you are going to find the edit that is at the top. Once you click that, you're going to select Edit Settings. In the category total, we're going to select Show More. Then we're going to find the grade display type, and in this drop-down menu are all your options. Just a letter, just a percentage, just the real points, or any combination of those. What this is going to do is then change the total here. So you can see that in this course total, we have a letter grade and a percentage. This is the most common view towards the end of the semester when you go to enter grades. Little bonus tip here. You'll notice in the gradebook example here, there's a negative, a plus sign, and a square. These are three-way toggle switches. So you can see that I have the negative, that's the default, shows everything. The homework is a plus sign, so I've collapsed it so it just shows the course total, the homework total. And if you look at the exams, you'll notice that there's no exam total, so it's just showing the items here. So that's a different way to look at your spreadsheet, especially when it gets really long. Or at the end of the term, when you go to enter grades, you can collapse everything, just show that course total right next to the students' names and get everything sorted on your screen so you can enter those grades. What do your students see? This is an example of what students see. John Conaway is one of our test students on our test server. So you can see that this is the default. We've already dropped something. Actually, we've kept a couple highest. And so we see the dropped, and you can see that the course total, students by default see a letter, the range, and the percentage. Faculty view, you can select the user report, but you need to select a specific name or all users if you want to see all of your users. So you see the user report looks about the same from the student view and the faculty view. When clicking on grades, students also have what is called the overview report. On our test server, John is enrolled in all of these courses, and these are all of his grades. Sometimes you might have students say that they just see the overall grade and they don't see the individual items. They're looking at the overview report. If you hide the entire gradebook from your students, your course will not show up on this list. Can you change what your students see? Absolutely. There are some faculty that don't deal with percentages. We don't need the percentages there. We just want to show up the points. So we can help you manage what is shown on that user report. We can help you make sure that the information is helpful to the students and to you and best fits with your course. Everybody's course is different. We can change things if you want it so that students only see letter grades. We can do that. And we'll want to make sure that we check everything to make sure it's showing exactly what you want it to see, what you want your students to see. Can you sort your gradebook? Yes. You have the alphabet that you can look through. You also have first name and last name that you can sort and filter that way. You can also sort your gradebook by any of the items by clicking the arrows. And if you have groups, you can also sort your gradebook using groups. So those are all ways that you can filter your gradebook to see different views of your students, or to narrow down to just one student. Can I hide things in the gradebook? Yes. A note of caution before we get into the notes here. Hiding grades in the gradebook can have unintended consequences. In other words, a student might see a different grade because a grade was hidden, so it wasn't calculating into their grade. And so when you hide grades, make sure that it's purposeful, intentional, and that you communicate. And eventually you have a plan to move forward to have those show. If you hide an activity on the main page, so if you have something like this and it says hidden from students, it will be hidden from students in the gradebook as well. In the graded report, it will show up gray. When I look at this report, I tend to look at the pencils. So the orange pencil looks really good, and then you can see the gray pencil. So you can see that it's hidden from students. If we look at a student here, you'll notice that exam 3 is missing. So it doesn't even show up in the student view. For quizzes, the review options determine what is shown to students. In this example, if you look at all the checkboxes, nothing is checked for after the quiz is closed. Not sure why, but once the quiz closes, then the grade would be hidden in the gradebook. If you're using the quiz tool in Moodle, this is also where you need to look. The most common one is points, and then after the quiz is closed, points, and then some of the other ones, whether you want them to see the actual question or just the points. But for it to show up in the gradebook, you have to have points selected. If you have students who have an extension, that may hide the questions and the points for other students as well. So this takes into account the widest window that the quiz is available to students. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. The assignment tool has some features that allow you to grade everything and then release them at the same time. That can be helpful for essays or longer assignments where you don't want students asking you questions or saying, why did John have his graded and I don't have my grade yet? They're all located at the bottom of the grade section that have to do with blind grading and those types of things. So it can hide the grades until you're ready to release all of them. If that's something you'd like to do, we'd be happy to find the best solution that will work best with your grading flow. Can you change the letter grades? Yes, you can. By default, we have to put distribution in there. ISU does not have a required letter distribution scale. Do check with your departments. There are some departments on campus that do have some required scales. So this is not one of the main 3 views, but if you look at it in that drop-down menu, you get grade letters. And when you click the edit, you'll see all of the letters. And then you have to click this little override button here. And then you can put in the percentages that match with the gradebook that you want. Notice that there are 5 decimal points there. Moodle displays 5 decimal points, but it does math until the 10th decimal point. There's a lot of nuance there. We've been getting this question. This happens most often when you inherit a course. So you suddenly, a course was built and taught by somebody else, and then now you're teaching it. Why are some grades red or green? You can, in the assignment settings or the quiz settings, set a grade to pass. And so if student scores fall below that, it turns red. So this is what you would see in your report. You can see that some of the grades are green and some of them are red. In the grade section, the grade to pass was set at 42.5. That's 85% of 50. You'll notice that anything that is below 42.5 in the homework section is in red with an X, and the green has a check. So that lets you know, yes, this is above the expectations, the other one is below. It's just communicating and helping with expectations. So it doesn't do any math, it doesn't fail any students, but students do see it. So if you have something, this works really nice with mastery. So if you do the homework until you get above a certain point, this is really helpful in that context. So I'm going to turn this over to Kim, and she's going to tell us all about where else to find information.
First of all, thank you for joining us today, because we love to see you and to have you participate in these webinars that we offer. And we always record them so that you can always access those. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how to do that. To learn more, we have a variety of resources that you can see there on the screen, and you can simply scan the QR code and it will take you to a page where you can access these links. You can also find these resources with the link that I just placed in the chat. And then there are several Tiger Tracks articles in our knowledge base, which is a library of how-tos right at your fingertips. And we also have our ITRC video library, which has several videos on various topics that you can find on our YouTube channel. And you're always welcome to meet with us at the ITRC if you would like that too. So you can email us at itrc@isu.edu. You can give us a call at 208-282-5880. And our front lab is always open if you want to drop in. So we're in room B17 in the basement of the O'Boler Library. So again, thank you for joining us today. And we hope to see you at future Wednesday webinars.